All right, so first things first, why is mental health important to you?
Um, Many reasons. One main reason is because my personal trauma. When I was, and I speak about it in the book, when I was a child, I had a lot of trauma in my life going on. And, eventually it led to my mom being really depressed, and her depression led to her death. And I was the one there that found her dead.
Wow.
So that's what drove me here.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of effect, and I mean, it clearly motivated you to want to serve others,
Mm-hmm.
but was there a moment in particular when you realized that that trauma was affecting you in ways that were starting to affect your life and your decision making, and what was that journey like for you?
Yeah. So I actually, for a majority of my life, I blocked it out. Like, that was my way of coping, just acting like it didn't happen. And it wasn't until I actually became a school psychologist and started working with the kids, hearing some of the things that they were going through, where I was like, wow, I'm not healed from this. Because, I would have different flashbacks and different things like that. And that's what really turned the light on. Like, I need to do something about this. I never I never spoke to anybody about it. And it wasn't until after I started really writing the book that I actually went to a therapist. And I'm not afraid to say my age. I'm 40 years old. And this healing process.
Tell you about this melon.
Yeah, so, it took me until I was in my late 30s to actually start to heal, to want to heal. Because otherwise, I never gave it any thought. And, once you really become aware of the trauma, you start to realize, oh, this is why I act the way I act. Or, oh, this is why I have this attachment to this unhealthy person or to this unhealthy thing. So that's what started it.
It's interesting that you bring up actually working with youth kind of started to turn an internal lens on yourself. I do some work with youth, and I had this opportunity to attend a trauma-informed care workshop, and extremely powerful, right? And I was just thankful to be in the room. I didn't expect to go through the emotional cleansing that I did. But I remember being in tears as I'm learning, how to better support youth through trauma-informed care. I'm thinking it's making me have to face things that I went through, and I just remember getting so emotional and starting to realize, oh wait, having that same epiphany, wait a minute, there is more here. You might have got a little further in life and. Okay, you done grown, but no, there's still healing to be done.
Lots of it.
Yeah. So you spoke about, the decision to go to therapy. How did that help you? What did that do for you on your personal journey?
So it actually helped me just understand more, because I went to a specific type of therapist. It's called internal family systems, and they specialize in trauma. So it actually helps you dig in and figure out what parts of you are acting this way because of the lack of development. So let's say I lost my mom at 8 years old. So whatever developmental phase I was in then, I was affected negatively at that time. And I'm still trying to make it up. And I have parts in me that are still trying to make it up. So they help you explore all of those different parts. Recognize that those parts were helpful at once and they still may be helpful, acknowledge them, but be aware when they come up negatively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I have to simplify it in my head, but I understand, I got to filter it. So it made me think of the little kid that we all have inside of us.
Yes,
right?
Our inner child.
Our inner child, and how you develop defense mechanisms that help you survive, through some trauma or through, trying times in life, but that they can become outdated. That defense mechanism can become outdated, and that's when it starts to become negative.
Problematic, yes.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm dealing with, I'm processing some of that stuff now.
Yeah.
I'm like, girl, you don't have to... You're not in the struggle no more. You don't have to do that anymore.
And I'm so glad you said the struggle, because the struggle is really hard to come out of.
It is.
Even when you're out of it mentally, you still have those moments of thinking that you're still struggling, buying certain things that you really don't have, no business buying anymore. Just like you were saying, oodles and noodles. And I'm glad you used that because, I'm sure you're not at that struggle level anymore to eat oodles and noodles. But it's just like one of those things you're so accustomed to. And it's a really bad habit to break out of.
Yeah. I mean, well, let me say, my oodles and noodles love, that's just really me being a fat. I didn't have to struggle much, like, financially growing up. Like, I just ate oodles and noodles because I love oodles and noodles. But like, during college, I struggled like hell during college. Like, that's when I had to go on welfare, and, like, there were a lot of other things happening during that time. And it wasn't until I was, like, maybe like 5 years out of college, I'd say even a little later, that I started to realize a lot of my thinking was still pulling from that time period in my life. And I was like, wait a minute, it's okay, boo-boo, you're not struggling like that no more. Like, you don't have to fear XYZ anymore. And I realized that I still had some of the same fears based off of that period in my time, that period in my life.
Exactly.
And that can definitely start to affect you. And so, I mean, and knowing that and realizing that about yourself, as a school psychologist, how does that then inform or shape the way that you work with students, and specifically students of color, Black students?
So, I say it all the time. I treat my former students, because I'm no longer in the school, I treat all of my students like they're my kids. I have 4 kids, and I know when I send my kids to school, I want their teachers, educators to treat them like they're their own kids, because honestly, they are during those 6.5, 7 hours. And when I treat kids like that, I come from a level of understanding, because parenting is like the most difficult job ever. So if you sort of kind of master that, which I think I have after the 4th try, and approach the kids that way with understanding and love, that just opens up the door to everything.
Yeah. What did your time working in the schools kind of show you about where our youth, our kids are at when it comes to trauma, when it comes to their understanding of mental health?
I came to the understanding that, and this was one of the reasons why I had to leave, I don't believe in the labels that they're given, specifically our students. And you see a lot that they label our kids as emotionally disturbed. And emotionally disturbed, or ED, is like this umbrella term for, layman's terms, a bad kid, right? And I see it so often in the inner city, but when I was in the suburbs for a year, they would fight not to get that label. And it was like a taboo word. But when I got here, they were giving it out like it was like pennies. And I was really disturbed by that. And from the fact that many of the disabilities that we're labeling them with is because of trauma, and is because of a failing school system. It's not anything up here. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
it's not the student, it's the system, it's the environment.
Exactly.
It's all of the kind of external factors.
Exactly. Yeah. And I realized that in general, public schools in this district, they're a disservice to our kids. And my kids are in the public schools in this city, but what I do is I really push them a lot in the grade school years, and get them into Masterman and the other magnet schools, because otherwise, the school that I was at, I see that you really have no fighting chance. They don't educate our kids the way that they should. And I heard you mention earlier that with the cyber school, they come in 2 to 3 years behind, and that's on the low end. I've seen kids in the high school, because that's where I was, 9th through 12th grade, and they're reading on like 3rd grade levels. And it's because they've been in schools where there were substitute teachers for the entire year. And we've had numerous openings throughout the year. So I know how it is for a substitute to come in, don't care, just sit there, doing whatever it is they want to do. And the kids are literally doing whatever it is they want to do. But when that's for a whole year, that's a lot of lost learning. So I learned a lot in the district. And that's when I learned that somebody has to speak out about this. And I know that plenty people are, but it touched me. And I knew that's what I had to do.
So given what you've seen and what you know to be true